Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to Personality Yoda, and this is the start of a new series that I'm particularly excited about. It's not that Becky's been sacked or anything, before you worry. We're in the beginning of 16 voice conversations where I'm going to take a willing volunteer each week or each session and go a little bit deeper in their voice, so you guys can hear a little bit about what that looks and feels like, ask them some questions, and ultimately hopefully model some coaching methodologies that you will find helpful. Well, I'm particularly excited about our first guest, our first willing volunteer, because in all of my coaching career, I would say that the Guardian Creative is the most rare in the Five Voices world, usually because they're far too busy out shooting, hunting, or attacking something or building something to actually be worried about being interviewed or actually talking about largely conceptual, ideological things. But today we have a special treat. We have Mr. Vaughan Moore, who is a Guardian creative, who has agreed to be the true pioneer, Vaughan, on this new Personality Yoda series. So I don't quite know how you got roped into this, or whether you're always the person who goes first on everything, but you are incredibly welcome, and welcome to the launch of the new series. How are you?
Well, thank you very much for having me on. I'm very pleased to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, pleasure, Vaughan. So tell everyone a little bit about you, a little bit, give us a minute of the Vaughan Moore story. Where have you come from? Where were you born? What sort of work have you done? How did you get here?
Thank you very much. Well, I am a Guardian creative, and I learned all about the Five Voices, about maybe 3 or 4 months after your book was published. I'm married. I've got 5 amazing, great kids.
Wow.
We live in Colorado Springs, Colorado. We moved here about a little over 7 years ago to be closer to Michelle's parents. We started our family in the Northern Virginia area. I was born really and raised there, although I spent a little bit of time in California, Southern California. Over the course of my career, because of the area in which I was raised, I've worked in some pretty heady places, some of the highest levels of government and the corporate world. But I never really felt very comfortable there, and so it wasn't until I had an opportunity to review when you have the opportunity to be interviewed by the Personality Yoda, you tend to, or at least I anyway, tend to prepare. And I went through and I re-listened to my voice series, and I heard something you said that really gave me a lot of not confidence, but just reassurance. When I was working in these heady environments, I was never very comfortable. And you said something along the lines of, Guardian creatives, they don't really, the creative voice is shaped through that Guardian foundation, and Guardians really don't need to change the world. They just need to have influence in the sphere of influence in which they have. And so that's a little bit about my story 3 years ago. Really, honestly, I don't want to put too much praise on you. It really changed my life in so many different ways, whether it was through business or my personal life. The family uses the Five Voices now on a regular basis around the dinner table, and we're just very thankful.
Oh, Vaughan, yes, I'm sorry, because that shows, doesn't it? I couldn't find a Guardian creative to record all the videos on the platform. So you sadly got me as a fake Guardian creative. So I hope that was okay. But thank you for your kind words. I think that those who know voices well will know that basically, whereas certain types are people pleasing and will usually tell you things have been good just to make you feel better, when you're dealing with Guardian creatives, that most certainly is not true. If Vaughan didn't believe it, there's no way that he would actually say it to you. So for me, that means a great deal, Vaughan. So thank you. Can you give us maybe one context in your, maybe for you or in context of family, where you would say understanding my voice has led to a really significant breakthrough for you in a way that perhaps you could give some context to people for that?
I would say that, on a regular basis, actually, it is impacting my life. In the work environment, I'm more able to recognize, and I think this is maybe something that you talk about the three spheres, the PI, the SI, and the EI, and so the self-aware. I mean the PI, the part about constantly becoming more aware of who I am, is a real journey, because on the one hand, I feel very much more self-aware, and then on the other hand, I also feel like, oh gosh, I have so much farther to go.
I always say to people, Vaughan, it's so much easier being unconsciously incompetent.
That's right.
I spent half my life, I think, being around a wonderful nurturer wife without any real understanding of why it didn't work as well as I hoped it would. And it's amazing, I think, how much more, certainly for me, and I think you were saying earlier, how for you, understanding what the nurturer brings and how you can connect with their world. And on the grounds, I always say to people, 60% of women are nurturers. So if you're married, you've got a pretty good chance that you're married to a nurturer, and most of us have no clue how we actually do that well. And I know that's been another area for you, hasn't it, where you said that's been really helpful.
Absolutely. On the work world, it's one thing, but on the personal side, I mean, if you spend your life with these people, your work world changes all the time.
Yeah.
Your personal world. And so I had to, fairly early on in my understanding of the voices and my wife, who's a nurturer, I had to really humble myself. It was hard because everybody likes to self-justify their actions and things like that. We went through this. She read and understood the voices at the same time, and so we were going through this process of self-understanding and self-awareness of our marriage as well as ourselves. And I had to really apologize to my wife about how I had not valued the contribution of her voice in the same way that I should have. And that made a huge difference in our marriage.
Honestly, I love that. People who say, the one thing, Steve, that you would most love to leave the world. I would love to leave the world where people actually understood the superpower of nurturers.
Yes.
And the 43% of the population who are really not represented in the places they should be. So I always think when I look at our political systems, Vaughan, and if I think ours is bad, yours looks even more amusing. I'd love to think what would happen if we had some nurturers and guardians actually running government and actually stewarding taxes in a way. I'd love to have the nurturers and guardians thinking through, how do we really create communities that care for people? How do we steward resources? And how do we actually demonstrate the values which we espouse to live by? But that may not happen in my lifetime, but certainly gives me hope, Vaughan, that there are people like you who grasp what you bring and what's there. So here's a question for you that I hope will be helpful for those who are listening, because though you may not meet many guardian creatives, there are actually a lot in the population. It's just they don't tend to hang around shows like Personality Yoda Vaughan. So I'm grateful. So if I was your boss, I know that's a horrifying thought, but if I was your boss, or in the new world maybe somebody who led the team that you're in, and I'm in giant language trying to be a liberating leader for you, help me and help those listening understand, what would I need to do to create a high support, high challenge environment for you? So, what would that look like? What type of things have leaders done for you in the past, or what things probably do you wish they'd done for you? Because in the end, what we're trying to do is we're trying to help people as they listen grasp, okay, if I'm really going to get my head around a guardian creative, I would say this is foundational. What does high support and high challenge look like in a work environment first, if I'm your boss, Vaughan? So go on, give me some clues.
Well, so one of the great things about this journey I've been on is that some of the things that are my biggest strengths I was not self-aware of, so I never really understood. And so I would say that I by nature am a troubleshooter.
Yeah.
And I see problems that I want to fix. I often see problems that I want to fix that are really not all that important. to others that I work with or in my environment.
Yeah.
And but I'm really good at fixing them.
Yeah.
Okay. And another thing that I tend to do is I have a perfectionist streak, and so I tend to want to fix it to the nth degree. And so if I had the perfect work environment, I would have somebody who valued and often came to me and said, "Hey, Vaughn, I have a problem. Can you help me fix it?"
Yeah.
And then, let me go off, but not let me go off too long, because this would be where the challenge would come in, to bring me back in to review what I've done and to help me self-correct, because I have a perfect solution in my head, but it's not always the solution that everybody wants.
That's so good. So what I'm hearing, this is me practicing my active listening, is to go, actually give you lots of variety where you can troubleshoot things in both a practical and an intellectual sphere, I suspect.
Yes.
So particularly when other people are struggling with things, because the Guardian loves to help people by bringing their particular talents and practical skills to bear but keep my day varied and trust my competence, but don't let me go too far without bringing me back, because the solution I come up with will be both pragmatic, but if you leave me for too long, it will become purist and I'll begin to disappear down my own rabbit hole. Is that fair?
That's correct. Absolutely. And if I look back on my past careers, the places where I haven't been as successful is where I haven't had that kind of a supportive, collaborative environment to help me self-correct.
That's so helpful. So many people want is apply what we call the golden rule, which is do for others what you want done for you. If I did that, if you did that to me, I would be horrified. The platinum rule is do for others what they would most want done for them. And that's the reason why I always say to people is you don't have to be Yoda to know why people behave the way they do. Even simply showing them the support challenge matrix and going, okay, tell me, what does high support, high challenge look like? You give me some clues, because I really want to be the type of leader that fights for your highest possible good. But until you give me the insights and some clues, I'm probably not going to guess it. And that's why most leadership is poor, because people never really know the question to ask. And I think that's why the support challenge matrix is so helpful. So think for a moment as well. If I was going to bring challenge to you, so say I've got some difficult feedback, how would you most like to receive that? What would I do that would make it feel empowering rather than perhaps dominating?
That's actually a really good question, because Guardians don't, or at least I don't really like challenge. Nobody, I think, really likes challenge. And I think that a lot of people that I've been around haven't provided the challenge in a way that I could hear very well. So it has been more incumbent upon me to respond well rather than them to provide the challenge well. And so I think that, like I said, as long as I feel like you're on my team or I'm on your team, and that you are giving me, and that you value my input, I think Guardians often, me personally, I don't want to generalize for Guardians, but me personally, I often feel like the feedback that I get is critical. Like, what you're bringing to the table is unnecessary. We don't need that. I don't feel like my skills and everybody's just like pushing back on me. I'm like, well, what is going on here? I mean, how can I contribute to the team? I don't feel like my voice is often valued. With that. And I think probably it's because of the way that people bring challenge to me. And so, honestly, I'd love your advice on how I can tell people how to bring challenge to me in a way that I might be able to hear better.
So Most guardians are wired for competence, Vaughan. The thought of being incompetent is a deeply troubling. So therefore, when you're going to bring challenge to the question, you have to frame it through is, Vaughan, do you want me to help you grow and be more competent in what you're trying to do?
Yes.
So what that'll do probably is go, oh yeah, I'm in. Then the fundamental question is, the guardian looks at you and goes, do I believe that you're more competent than I am in relation to the fact I have any interest in receiving feedback from you? So there's a two-way filter that goes on here, and
Right.
a lot of guardians will sometimes communicate a lack of respect, not because they mean to or even say it. It's because they look at the person who's giving the feedback and go, do you know, I think I'm more competent than you are, and I'm not really interested in wasting my time with you. So I suspect a guardian creative might have gone into trouble at some point in their careers, Vaughans, where basically someone's tried to give you challenging feedback to grow, but you've looked at them and gone, I'm not really sure I respect your competency. So that's one barrier to overcome. Would that be fair?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I can think of, half dozen situations in which in the past, somebody has tried to give me feedback and I'm thinking, do they really know what they're talking about?
So once you know somebody is for you, once you know someone is competent enough, usually where people go wrong with the guardian is that they either don't prepare their feedback well enough, and then they get defensive when the guardian challenges the assumptions upon which their feedback are built. And that sometimes doesn't go well either. So I always say to people is, if you're leading a guardian and you're going to bring some feedback because you want to be a liberator to them, you better make sure you have some evidence and some examples that are concrete with sensory data and information and date and timestamp, because part of the reason they'll show you that they really respect your leadership and competency is they will challenge the challenge that you're bringing them.
And, I'll just, so I mentioned Michelle and I have been working through this together, and I've seen some tremendous growth in her as well. As a nurturer, she has not wanted to bring a whole lot of challenge to me, and she's recently recognized that she does have the ability to do that. And at first, I didn't really like that. But I can just think of an instance just last weekend in which, and I'll get more into the specifics later, but in which she said, Vaughan, you need to trust this person. You have already seen how this person has had an impact. Trust them. Let them run with it. Don't second guess them. They are better at XYZ than you are.
Yeah.
Ooh, that was hard for me to hear. Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, she's right.
I think the thing is, when you begin to understand that each of the foundational voices has a superpower which is greater than yours, and that really what the best relationships are where both parties feel the other truly honors and respects the superpower they bring. However, this is an important one in the context of marriages. You have a duty of care when your voice is louder and more forceful than the person that you are with. So if you think of, pioneers being the loudest or the most forceful voice, pioneer, connector, guardian, creative, nurturer, if you are a guardian, you have the primary duty of care to create the environment where Michelle actually feels she can bring her superpower to the table. So those are things which you can constantly work at, and what Voices does it, and the tools give you language and lens. So that's cool. I've got a question coming in on the chat from Susie, and this is an interesting one, I think, is to go, what do guardian creatives do for fun?
Oh boy. Okay. That's actually just an amazing question. Okay. So on the one hand, we love learning. Okay. And so a lot of people will look on the outside and, well, that's not really all that fun. But I like taking things apart. So I like learning about new things. I like making things better. Okay. And so you may laugh. So I have this older car. It's a 2000 Audi A6. Okay, and if you know anything about German engineering, it is very, very intense. This is a big engine in a not a small car, but it's a big engine in a small box. Okay, and so the first step in any car repair for this Audi is take the bumper off. Okay, so I had a problem in that I needed to replace the timing belt. Have I ever worked on cars before? No. I didn't really have I think it was $6,000 or $7,000 to put into this 20-year-old car, and so I thought, well, how hard can it be?
Oh, this is so good, because again, it's going. You're almost apologizing for it, but I'm going. This is what you were made for.
Right.
That's the greatest joy in the world, to be able to get your hands dirty, to really kind of understand how and why things work. You'd be amazed how many Guardian creatives get into trouble at school because they don't really just want to sit there and listen to somebody talk at them. They go, look, let me go take the car apart, or let me build something, or do something with my hands, and all of a sudden it'll all make sense to me. Yep. And people just sometimes just go, it's the wrong learning, but I'm going to go off on a tangent, Vaughan, if I'm not careful on that one. But I think it's just really good to know. Again, it's a great question. What do you do for fun? If you have somebody that's in your world or relationships, knowing what they do for fun is so important. But I always ask every Guardian creative I know, what's your geeky, basically, where you have absolute world-class tools where you'd rather your spouse and friends didn't know how much you spent on the precision piece of engineering, because it's not, whatever the hobby is, you won't have an average version of it. You will have spec'd it within an inch of its life, and you will have the best guitar or the best skis or the best gun. So what's your where's the temptation for you, Vaughn? Where have you spent more money than you should have for the perfect piece of kit?
I'm looking at it right now. It's my MacBook Pro. It's probably twice as expensive as the model that I had before. I had a MacBook Air, and of course I passed that down to the family because they so computers, I'll spend more money on an Apple than an Android because of perceived technological
well, this is fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to ask a quick question here. Okay, we're not going to spend a long time on this, but I love it when I go, okay, I'm going to say to you, you and I are going to be in partnership in either a business or a non-profit. I've got limitless amounts of money, limitless amounts of connections. Whatever it is you would most love to do, we'll be able to do. So what is it in your perfect world where all of the day-to-day practicalities are taken care of, where you haven't got to worry about responsibilities? Easier for me as a Pioneer Connector than you, I know. But 5 years from now, if that was true, what would we be doing together? Or rather, what would you be doing and I'd be cheering and helping in any way I can? So what's the dream in you that you'd most love to do and build, whether that's a non-profit or a business in the future?
Well, my dream over the last several years is really to build a business that unlocks the potential of people. And so to be able to have an opportunity to learn from you today and then apply it to my coaching business. The name of my company is Healthy Company Cultures. And I've kicked around the idea of just having kind of an umbrella of healthy cultures, and then healthy company cultures, healthy family cultures, healthy church cultures, healthy homeschool cultures. We're a homeschool family. All of those things. But like I said, unlike Giant, who has this desire to, unlock the potential of people in every organization throughout the whole entire world.
Of course.
Our scope of influence, Michelle and I have been thinking about the idea is that, okay, well, so how do we impact, how do we unlock the potential of people around us, in our sphere of influence, at our church, in our neighborhood, And so that's really where we're looking to grow and to have an impact.
And Vaughan, that's so good, because here's the thing: you usually find the louder voices make everyone else feel guilty. So as the loudest combination of voice of all as a pioneer connector, what I believe in, I used to think that it was ridiculous that everyone else didn't believe in as well. Now I go, when I'm listening, when people ask the dream question, I want to know, does this really fit who they were made to be? So for Jeremy and I, obviously, changing the whole world is, that's really what we're going to do in the next decade, because by then we'll have a franchise on Mars, Venus, and ideally into Neptune before. But if you think for the Guardian creative, it's always about where can they be the hands and feet of transformational change. So being involved usually in the community and relationships where they've been for a long time, you tend to be those people who commit to the same people group, same church, the same, and everyone knows you and everyone trusts you. And everyone knows, Vaughan, that you're not a charismatic entrepreneur. So what you got to remember is that actually when anyone listens to me, they always assume, without realizing it, they're about to get sold something. Because everyone has met my character before, and they've usually ended up buying a timeshare or something that they didn't really want or need. Everyone, when they talk to you, goes, wow, if Vaughan believes in this, it must be true. Mm-hmm. So the most important thing as a partner, I'd say to you, Vaughan, is to go, I love what you're trying to do. I love the fact that you are deliberately choosing not to, and I hope you don't feel, oh, it's a shame I don't want to change the world. It's
not
actually,
anymore. Not after, not after what I relearned just last week.
Yeah.
For years, I've thought, oh, well, shouldn't I have a bigger vision?
Yes. Yeah. Do you know why? Because everyone at the front is like me. And they're kind of going, they assume that what we want for ourselves should be what you have. And of course, then what happens is, for 73% of the population, all the guardians and the nurturers would much rather see change happen in their neighborhood, in their immediate depth circles of relationships. So I love the fact that there is a community transformation heartbeat in you. I love the fact that you will be far more successful in sales than you think you will. For you, Michelle, because in the end, you are authentic, trustworthy, and actually sometimes not the most gifted, charismatic communicator on a stage. So what I want to say to you as a partner, Vaughan, is I love what you're going after. I'd really encourage you, Michelle, to define the geographical area and the relationships that you would most love to see breakthrough in. You will then be able to devise a strategy for how you're actually going to work with that specific group of people, and critically not to feel guilty that somebody 20, 30 miles away wants your help and you go, that's not my focus. Right. I've got friends of mine in a place in Alabama, and they focused on 10 blocks for the last 15 years, and they've regenerated now over 300 of the homes there and kept the people in it. The influence they have in that community, and she's a guardian, she's amazing, Ash Marsh, if you're listening, inspires me because they committed to the same people in the same place for an extended period of time and said, we're going to consistently live out our vision and our calling and our passion. So I'm commissioning you, Vaughan. I'm going to cheer. I'm going to check in as well, because in the end, you at some point will be tempted to believe you're not doing enough. And I'll keep saying to you is to go, sometimes it's the little that happens over an extended period of time in a committed relationship. Here's the thing, it's much harder, Vaughan, to be consistent in the same place with the same people than it is to go off and travel, as I sometimes do, be a charismatic hero on a stage and go in and sort of drop a magic bomb and run away. The hardest place and the most, I would say, long-term return is when you commit to a very focused group of people for you and love on them with all your worth. So actually, practical care, you'll be a much better teacher than you think, because everyone can follow the guardian. You will teach in the way you love to learn. So, I think it's a brilliant fit for you. And Michelle, as a nurturer, she will feel guilty as well that it's not a big enough vision. But the two of you will will go miles. I love it. So is that encouraging, Vaughan?
Very, very encouraging. We've said for years, really from the beginning of our relationship and our marriage, we'll look at XYZ person and, well, why can't we be more like them? And we were just preparing for my conversation with you last night, and we were talking about that same thing, and the kind of the little bit of a change that shifted in at least my mind, and now hopefully in both our minds, about how we can be of influence. And that's hard for a guardian, because often I feel like another really encouraging thing that I've learned over the years of following the 5 voices, or understanding the 5 voices, is that it's okay that I don't lead from up front, it's okay for me to lead by example. It's sometimes hard when I don't see other people following my example, but I have to trust that there's stuff going on there that I just don't understand, and I don't necessarily need to have the accolades, but just my presence is enough.
And you need to write that down, because here's the thing, Vaughan, there are way more of you in this world than there are of me. You wouldn't know it to watch the media or watch social media or listen to the volume, but there are so many people that you can be a liberator for, because when they see you, they will see themselves. And in Giant World, I always carry with me the heroes of those who I believe are the most liberated in how they're made. So a Maria Guy, who you'll come across, is a guardian nurturer. And Maria is, I love being around people who are being the very best that they were made to be, and are not trying to compare themselves to what other voices and other gifts and other graces do. And I think you'll end up being a liberator to more people more than you realize, for you, Michelle, because in the end, most of the guardians and nurturers often feel less than, and they don't feel necessarily that what they would choose to do is actually enough or valued from the stage. And I would say, I think that some of that hands and feet transformation, you guys will probably do a lot of this almost couple by couple, leader by leader, group by group. And in the end, you'll look back in, say, 5-10 years from now, and you'll look at, oh my goodness. So, we got Scott and Michelle Weedoff, who are up in the middle of nowhere in Alexandria. They're probably under about 8 feet of snow right now. Nurturer, creative. They chose their small city in the middle of nowhere. And, 5 years on, they're actually now shaping the very culture of government, church, local community, because people go, wow, you who are that talented are prepared to commit to investing not just for an event, but long-term in the fabric of our community, bringing transformational tools and learning, because most people, Vaughan, that you'll be dealing with may not have been learning things for a long time. And they often feel, I don't want to feel foolish, or, I'm good at making things, or I'm good at doing things, or I'm good at caring. And I think that you and Michelle will have an ability to communicate often through your own story and allow other people into that. So partner, I'm excited. I actually think you're in a great place. I'm honored that we have a guardian creative that wants to be part of the Giant family and do that. So before we wrap up, Vaughan, I want to go, is there any one specific issue that you would go, if I could get Personality Yoda's wisdom on one thing, what would it be? I can't promise the wisdom will be good enough, but I promise at least I will talk and I will give it a go.
Well, this time with you, it's just it's been amazing. So that in itself is a one thing. I would say that, I'm relaunching this business, and it has been an exercise in patience and a lot of prayer, a lot of letting go. I mentioned this to you, being able to let go of my desire to control my business and, hand a portion of it over to a partner has been difficult. but it's a part of the journey that I'm hoping. So
it's so good. So guardian creatives always have perfectionist tendencies on steroids.
Mhm.
So guardians often find it difficult to let anyone else do what they do because no one does it as well as they can, which is great until you reach capacity. But a guardian creative not only has the competency issue, the guardian creative brings actually a perfectionist, purist version of even how the task should be done. So to identify what the tendency, which would be a weakness for, is really important, because unless you can identify your conscious incompetence, it's very hard to get to conscious competence. So what I'd say is this, is learning how to celebrate the superpowers of Michelle in the first instance. So she's a nurturer. Do you know what a second voice is or not?
Creative.
Okay. So you both have that, which is fascinating. So depth and authenticity will be so big in you guys. Is take the time to learn her superpower to the point where you can celebrate your partnership in a way which is not just an academic exercise, but is truly a heartfelt, actual reality. And wherever you go, champion her. So you'll always have championed her, but through the lens of what she did for you or the family. You know, if you've had 5 kids and you've raised them well, then I can guarantee Michelle has already been a superhero with a reward in heaven far greater than mine will be. But if you think about it, learn to celebrate her for the superpowers that she's never had the opportunity probably to use, because the nurturer will always default to the servant rather than the co-leader.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing I said years ago. You'll have to keep telling her, because nurturers always have imposter syndrome and they will always try and withdraw back to where they feel comfortable. And the thing for Michelle, when you listen to this, Michelle, is every nurturer who's raised children has what I call a shrinking box, because nurturers hate to get things wrong and let people down. So therefore what happens is they find something that they can do that everyone affirms them for. And if they're not careful, they become more and more fearful to go beyond that world. So coming out the other side of raising children, it's often asking the question is, well, what can I do? And slowly but surely, Vaughan, giving the opportunity for Michelle to go, I'm going to try something. I'm going to push the box out again, because everyone knows nurturers are unbelievably talented. The only people who don't believe that is them. So learning how to build a partnership with you and Michelle will mean calling her up and helping her grow the box again, because for the last X number of years, she's really allowed herself to live in the box of family, and you've defined the world of work. And I watch that so many times with, you know, amazing nurturer, often women, but can be both. So there's the thing I most want you to do. I love the direction of travel. And the challenge for you as a leader is for Michelle to believe she's a true partner with you, and that actually you don't let her just default back, which she'll try to occasionally, to push you out the front and she goes backstage. That actually she's going to be a partner with you, and actually you can't do what you're going to do without her. So there we go. Any final words, Vaughan, from you? Because I think we probably used all our time. But for me, it's such a privilege to have a guardian creative willing to engage with me. It's almost like I'm taking every last minute of opportunity.
I feel the same way. Thank you very much. You know, most people will identify a pioneer in their life that has been a little bit hard, or yeah. And I look at you and just think, wow, I wish I had more, you know, pioneer people like you in my life to encourage me and to get me going. I mean, one of the things that we talked about is just this perfectionist tendency, and so that means that a lot of times I don't get stuff done because it's not ready. And so there are a few people that have recently come into my life that are pioneers, that they are healthy and refined, and I'm looking forward to engaging more with more pioneers. Whereas you know, in the past, like
Well, that's very kind of you, Vaughan. Pioneers are great consultants, by the way, if they're healthy.
Yes.
So actually, they'll often see how things could be that you won't, and they'll often speak the words of affirmation, encouragement. So if you're listening as a pioneer as well, pioneers have the greatest potential for good and the greatest potential for harm. It comes with the volume of the voice, and the tendencies don't go away. But Vaughan, this has been an absolute pleasure, brother. Thank you for launching the Personality Yoda series that I'm really excited to do. I don't know what we've got on next time, but I'm sure Tracy will tell everyone. And Vaughan, for today, bless you. Send our love to Michelle. We're going to follow the growth of your consulting business and the transformation of your local community. And I will continue to remember to celebrate it because Tracy will remind me. So fantastic. Okay, everyone. Good to see you all today.